Shooting down a civilian aircraft is an act of the international terrorism targeted against the entire world.
We must and we will find out precisely what happened to this flight. No stone will be left unturned.
The possible repercussions that could flow from this beyond the tragic loss of life.
The final stages of boarding of flight MH17.
Boarding and cargo loading.
Malaysian passenger posted this clip moments before takeoff, writing, "In the name of God, feeling a little nervous."
Breaking news to bring you the Reuters news agency reporting that a Malaysian passenger aeroplane has crashed in Ukraine. They say it has happened near to the Russian border.
These are the remains of that flight MH17. Its destination, Kuala Lumpur. But what happened to it over Ukrainian airspace yesterday afternoon has not only transformed the lives of the families of the 298 on board, it has caused diplomatic reverberations around the world. The crash site sits in the middle of a region torn apart in recent months by fighting between those loyal either to Russia or Ukraine. An early hypothesis, a civilian casualty of this drawn-out conflict.
The Ukrainian authorities believe that the plane was shot down. At this stage, however, Malaysia is unable to verify the cause of this tragedy. But we must and we will find out precisely what happened to this flight.
If MH17 was shot down, then by whom, using what kind of weaponry, and why? Could they have even known they were targeting a passenger aircraft? We know the flight took off from Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam at 12:15 local time, 11:15 in the UK. It wasn't due to have arrived in Kuala Lumpur until 6:10 a.m. Malaysian time. Data from Flight Radar 24 suggests the plane had passed the city of Kremenchuk, 186 miles from the Russian border. Malaysia Airlines says local air traffic controllers lost the plane at 3:15 p.m. London time. It was last registered flying at 33,000 feet. It crashed near the village of Grabovo, just 25 miles from the Russian border. The route of flight MH17 had been declared safe by the International Civil Aviation Organization. But safe only insofar as it's a long way down on the ground in eastern Ukraine, where fighting continues between pro-Russian separatists and those loyal to Kiev. But as these photos show of a Ukrainian transport plane shot down earlier this week, little is safe, no matter how high you may be. But even as the wreckage of MH17 continued to smoulder, the blame game began, fingers pointed by Ukraine at Russia and vice versa.
Today, the whole world had seen the real face of the aggressor. Shooting down a civilian aircraft is an act of the international terrorism targeted against the entire world. This is a wake-up call for the whole world, and we expect it for an adequate response from the international community.
The state over which territory it happened is responsible for this terrible tragedy. I have already given certain instructions to the military departments that they need to provide all necessary assistance in the investigation of this crime. And I also asked the government of the Russian Federation to do everything for a thorough investigation of this event.
In the search for someone responsible, many will point to video footage like this, posted on the social media account of rebel commander Igor Strelkov, sympathetic to Moscow. The unidentified men suggest it's a good thing weapons had been brought to the area.
Да вот мы вышли, вон, видишь, вон осколки еще летят, вон черные. Что-то бахнуло, да вон еще падает. Вон, смотри, черный дым за терриконом, где прогресс. Пошла работа. Выйди. Смотри, вот террикон на красное, смотри, черный дым поднимается, нихера себе. Вот мы только что смотрели, как самолет взорвался и падает. Да, падал самолет. Ну крепко жахнуло. А ну позвони ему.
Also, Ukraine claims to have intercepted communications between separatists and Russian military intelligence, which they're presenting as proof of their involvement, though this has not been independently verified.
Только что сбили самолет, группа минера за Янакиево упал. Сейчас поехали искать и фотографировать сбитый самолет. Дымится. 30 минут назад где-то. Ну что у вас там?
Короче, стопудово гражданский борт.
Понятно. А этот, как, народу много там?
Да пиздец. В обломки прямо во дворы падали тут. Так вот.
Борт какой?
Да я еще пока не разобрался, потому что я не был возле основной части. Я только вот смотрю там, где начали первые тела падать. Там остатки внутренних кронштейнов, кресла, тела.
Понятно.
Вот так.
Вооружение есть что-нибудь?
Вообще ничего. Гражданские вещи, медицинские ошметки, там полотенце такое, туалетная бумага.
In a way, it can be understood because probably unofficially they are telling, if they suspect that the separatists were behind, which seems to be sort of the evidence seems to point in that direction, they're probably having very intense conversations with them unofficially, trying to let them know that this is not really the way they should move forward. But officially, of course, they cannot admit that the separatists were behind this sort of attack. So in a way, trying to sort of shift the blame and point it to the Ukrainians is in a way, to a certain extent, understandable, although it's probably not the right thing to do.
But the leaders of the 10 countries whose nationals make up the 298 on board want to deal with facts. David Cameron earlier chaired a special cabinet meeting on the plane attack, calling for those responsible to be held to account.
My first thoughts are with the families of those who've lost loved ones, including British citizens. I've been on the telephone today to the Australian Prime Minister and the Dutch Prime Minister. They've suffered appalling loss of life as well, and also been in contact with the Malaysians, and we're making other calls today so we can share the information that we have between us. It is an absolutely appalling, shocking, horrific incident that has taken place, and we've got to get to the bottom of what happened and how this happened. We have some information, but we need to find more information. What is absolutely necessary is for all governments to cooperate in every way they can to get to the bottom of what happened, to make sure that this site can be properly investigated, to make sure that the bodies of loved ones can be properly recovered. All governments, the Russian government, the Ukrainian government, all of them must do everything they can so that we get to the bottom of what happened in this absolutely dreadful loss of life.
Of the 298 who perished, by far the biggest losses were faced by families in the Netherlands. Relatives of the 189 Dutch victims arrived at Schiphol Airport in the search for answers.
Heeft u familie aan boord?
Ja.
Ja. Wie?
Malaysians, Indonesians, British, Germans, Australians, Belgians, Filipinos, a Canadian, a New Zealander. Governments of all these countries will want somehow to be involved in investigations.
This is the most difficult investigation I think anyone's going to have to mount. It's an American aeroplane, Malaysian registered. The Dutch will want to have a part of it. We will want to have a part. There are 9 Brits on that aircraft after all.
They're likely to find this to have been the work of the long-range surface-to-air Buk missile system, known as the Grizzly. Can fire missiles up to 75,000 feet in the air with a range of 30 miles. It locates and fixes targets by radar, not heat, and can guide 3 missiles into a single target. It's triggered to explode just before impact. Both Russians and Ukrainian forces have these systems.
And you could learn to set this missile up and fire the missile within a few days. The missile system is quite sophisticated, but it doesn't take a sophisticated person to operate it.
But critical will have been to have kept the integrity of the crash scene. But that's unlikely to have happened and will compound concerns the black box flight recorder was reportedly removed and taken to Moscow.
I think in this particular case, we are going to be challenged in order to have any preservation of evidence, because a lot of people have been walking over the site. The black box, as you say, really it's 2 aspects of the black box. One is a flight data recorder, and the other one is a voice recorder, cockpit voice recorder. For those to depart the scene to another country will undoubtedly hamper the investigation.
For now, the questions far outweigh the answers. But for how long? It's an imbalance likely to shift quickly, given the international reaction to the attack on MH17.